Shut up. As you know, this is the measure of an episode, where it is our continuing mission to explore what makes Star Trek proper Star Trek, or genuine Star Trek, and not just actually maybe entertaining, intriguing television. I'm Paul.
And I'm curious because we may be disagreeing on this. I'm Jonathan, and we do that with three objective criteria that you can watch the episode and say, yes, it has this, or no, it doesn't. And if it doesn't check all three boxes, it's not proper Star Trek. I've been getting a lot of heat for this.
I feel like you're talking to somebody specific.
I may be.
It's subtle, but it's there.
Thanks. I'm really glad. I was trying to be discreet. The first one is there sci-fi actually in the plot and not just two people sitting by a fireplace? Is that sci-fi intricately woven into the plot and not just technobabble that could be any kind of thing? And number 3, is there some kind of moral or ethical dilemma that a character must face, like whether or not to move a comet? I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Paul, and this week we watched Star Trek Voyager, Season 4, Episode 13, Waking Moments.
Yes.
Nightmares become reality when the crew is attacked in their dreams. What? Is attacked in their dreams.
So in their dreams is a prepositional phrase, so it's just crew is attacked, is that sentence.
Right.
Yeah.
Nightmares, reality, crew, attacked, dreams. It's enough. It's enough for you.
Nightmare crew. That's great.
It's a brand new episode. So this episode, it's curious because it sounds like perhaps you did not like this episode.
It's not that I didn't like it. It's that the writers once again thought that the audience was an idiot, and they had to not only spell everything out for us, but repeat it multiple times. This episode needed a bleep. It needed a bleep hot it needed a B plot to really tighten up the dream story, and still give us something that, to just make the episode better.
It was interesting because this episode kind of has two segments where they encounter the problem where, the whole first part of this very long kind of intro.
Yes. It was 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Where we're in each other's dreams, and it kind of starts out, are they dreaming? And then it turns out that they are. And there's this one alien. And this is something that I don't like about these types of structures, where we know the answer and we have to wait for the rest of the crew to catch up to that. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of boring to watch them. And maybe it's me, maybe it's my personality, where I just can't, it's frustrating for me.
Right.
It's like, weren't you watching? The answer's right there. And so I don't like that part. And I also felt like, well, let's back up for a second.
Well, just to speak to that for a moment, it's bad writing when it's not intentional dramatic irony. Like, if we know everything and we are waiting for the audience or we're waiting for the characters to catch up, that's not good writing.
Right. And they do it again. I'm kind of going out of order here, but Chakotay and the Doctor, eventually it's Chakotay and the Doctor team up to try and rescue the crew from this dream state that they've been locked into. And they figure out what's going on, that there are this race that is probably asleep, and they have this field that makes people go to sleep so they can hold them hostage. And then, so they figure that out. And then right after that scene where they figure it out, they cut to Janeway and the other people who are asleep, like Paris and B'Elanna Torres, is that her last name? Yeah, B'Elanna Torres.
Yeah.
And they go through the same logic and figure it out again.
Right.
And it was totally unnecessary. You could have come into them, so you're saying we're still sleeping? And that would have been it, right?
Yeah. Well, and are you talking about when they're all in a huddle?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
they figure out the exact same information.
So what irritated me about that scene was, with everything that they've encountered, B'Elanna finds it dubious that people would be able to walk into their dreams. She's like, just her whole demeanor and her whole conversation, like, she just had to be the skeptic for people to explain what was happening, and for Seven to come in and be like, the collective unconscious.
Right. It wasn't revelatory like they made it sound.
Right.
And I wonder if these two scenes were written separately or something. But maybe they felt, or they were supposed to occur at different times. It just felt weird that it was, I think it was right after the scene where the Doctor and Chakotay figure it out, that Janeway figures it out. I'm surprised Janeway wasn't first.
I actually really did appreciate that she wasn't the smartest person in the room for this. Like she collaborated with everybody else, and B, listened to what Chakotay had to say to do it, rather than telling him, isn't this part of your religion or your beliefs that you can walk in dreams?
Okay, I want to talk about that for a second.
Okay.
Because was it kind of like Chakotay starts talking about his vision quest, and he says, I have these techniques because I'm Native American where we can induce lucid dreaming.
Right.
And is this whole thing like racist or stereotypical? Or is it okay because Chakotay's character is Native American that he sort of says stereotypical things? I didn't know if we should cancel him or not.
Right. We should definitely cancel a 25-year-old character. So it's a little bit of both. I mean, I don't know if you know the backstory or not, but Robert Beltran hated how Chakotay was being used, and he actually was trying to get fired by making more and more ridiculous demands for himself as an actor, and Paramount kept providing it to him.
They were playing chicken with him, huh?
Yeah, kind of.
How ridiculous can we be?
Yeah. And I mean, but part of it was like, give me more money. And they were like, okay.
Nice.
I know. He's like, I should be doing this with every show that I'm on. So I don't know at this point how much of it was him saying like, I need an episode, so give me one, and how much of it was, well, here, let's give this to you. Because he also didn't really have a whole lot with his, like, he didn't have I forget what it's called, like a bio card that told him what his character was and what his beliefs were and that kind of thing. It was very much like
a character breakdown type
yeah,
thing?
Yeah, character analysis. It was very much whatever the script needed. Which was one of the things that bothered him.
Well, he felt like the most, like, very un-Star Trekian, I guess. Like, it was sort
in
of
this episode?
like he felt just cartoonishly Native American.
Right.
And it didn't feel right. It felt like, okay, I can understand. I don't know. His whole character doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, is he supposed to be just your regular Earth Native American? Not, you know what I mean by regular. Like, he's not an alien.
Not
type
one
of
from
thing.
the Paradise Syndrome?
Yeah. Now that would be interesting. If he was from there.
Yeah.
Man, damn it, Voyager.
Do your Star Trek research. Right.
I know. What a great opportunity. The only opportunity for something like that. But I don't see. So he's not an alien. He's just a human, right?
To my knowledge, yeah. Yeah.
Then it's super racist the way that they write him. Although I feel like there are certain episodes where his character does have these supernatural powers.
Right, but I think it does just go back to stereotypes. He calls upon the spirits of his ancestors.
Okay, so yeah, so it's super racist then.
Yeah,
we settled it. Okay, just making sure.
Well, yeah, because I mean the two things about it were they didn't want to offend any specific tribe by selecting a different tribe. So he's just from either
non-denominational.
Yeah, non-denominational, unmentioned, Native American tribe, or he's from a made-up one. I don't remember if they ever say what his tribe is, or if he just always says my people or in my tribe.
Right.
But yeah, in so doing, by not selecting a tribe, they make it stereotypical indigenous. And
well, it's almost if we were to ask the writers, they would say there's more than one.
No, you don't understand. He's Indian.
Yeah. Didn't you go to white people school? Jumping back to the beginning of the episode, I found it comforting that Tuvok sleeps in the nude.
Does he sleep in the nude?
Well, so it could be argued. So he wakes up in his nightmare. He goes, he has the quintessential anxiety-ridden dream where you show up to school naked. Uh-huh. Everybody has that dream.
Yeah.
Except he showed up on the bridge and he's naked. And so you could argue, well, that's just his nightmare. He doesn't normally sleep naked. But
right.
I wouldn't think that you would dream about yourself sleeping naked if you didn't already. because he was okay with it. He knew that he was naked in the dream. That wasn't the hard part of the dream. So I'm going to go with that. He actually does sleep in the nude.
Okay. So what bothered me about that was that is like a nightmare that humans have. I wish that he had had a Vulcan nightmare. Like he is with other Vulcans and they're either doing things illogical or they do something and he's like, why are you doing that? And they're like, I don't know. I just felt like it, you know?
Yeah.
And so like he's distressing over how all the other Vulcans are behaving and they're like trying to get him to do the same thing.
Well, I would think that a normal dream would just be him murdering everybody on the ship because they don't fall into alignment of how he thinks they should be behaving.
Exactly.
But that's not a nightmare.
Just Neelix that's a great dream. He's like, I was so well rested last night.
I know. That's like a wet dream for a Vulcan, for Tuvok. Ensign Kim, he has, I guess what they're setting up is, or have already set up, is that he's got the hots for 7.
Yeah.
So he gets to make out with 7. And the nightmare part is he sort of comes out of making out with 7 and then looks up and it appears as though he's been making out with the alien who's been watching them. And
I thought the alien was just standing off to the... I mean, either way, it's
unclear.
Unbelievably creepy. You're right.
Yeah, it's unclear.
Well, what was funny to me is it wasn't clear that Kim was not waking up. He just kind of calms back down and falls asleep. And so I like the idea that, you know, he's just like, this is one of my nightmares. Like,
I know. It's a mild one, so let's just keep going with it.
Right? I mean, you know, it's kind of one of the things I've always wondered about. So why don't you stick around? Let's see what happens.
I mean, do you know if this is the first time that we get some sort of expression of Kim having the hots for 7?
I don't know, but being halfway through the 4th season, I don't believe so. Since she showed up, I think, in episode, if not the first episode 2 or 3.
Yeah. So then Paris comes in after he's woken up, and he has the conversation with Neelix that they both did not sleep well.
Well, right, but first he has that conversation with B'Elanna, you know, because again, we have to explain that everybody's having this issue. Like we need to see them all have this conversation. Right. And what was interesting about this is, you know, they're talking about how they never see each other. And so he lists all these different places they could go on the holodeck. Every single one was Earth.
That's true. And also, are they going on a vacation? Because it's not like you can just in an hour go skiing. I guess maybe you can. I don't, because it's the holodeck and you just kind of appear there.
Right.
But water skiing and regular skiing are like the 2 most business intensive sports you can do. It's not like you can just throw a baseball around and that's the end, which would be awesome if that's what they do on a date.
just play catch for an hour. Yeah.
But they make it sound like they're going on vacation. Like, that's a nice place to go. We can hang out on the beach while I go water skiing and she lays out. You know, it's like, what is this, a date or is this a trip?
Right.
It's not important to the plot, but it just was a weird writing thing.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man. So yeah, we also need to talk about the ending. Oh, the ending.
We'll get there.
But what was interesting too was he mentioned Tahiti, or she did, and having just watched Strange New Worlds, all I could think about was the Paradise Syndrome, the Tahiti Syndrome. Like,
maybe it'll show up. And that is a big episode, right? In the original series canon.
It's a big episode?
Yeah, isn't it like a very popular episode? The Tahiti Syndrome, whatever? Paradise Syndrome?
I don't know. I have to imagine it's controversial for the same reason that Chakotay should be canceled.
So Neelix and Paris are talking to each other, and
they talk about flying by 3 full moons. Like that was one of the things, you know, like maybe that's why we're all having bad dreams. But they're in space. Aren't all moons
Well, it's
full?
unclear if they have like some sort of mission or if they're traveling. You wouldn't think that they would be stopped for any long period of time if they didn't have some sort of specific mission because they're trying to get home.
Right.
So the idea that they're just adrift doing something or resting, you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So you're right. But what was weird about this scene, this is kind of nitpicky, but so Paris says, maybe you should pour yourself some of your own coffee because you just poured me motor oil for coffee,
right?
Or whatever he says.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this, like Neelix gives this kind of worried look, and then there's a music sting on it, and I thought, why is this a moment?
Right.
That should have been like Neelix should just laugh that off and be like, yeah, you're right. and
Yeah.
then that's it. Like, but they turn it in, like they obviously intentionally turn this into a moment. And I couldn't tell why. I couldn't tell if
Interesting,
there was some
right.
sort of side plot of like Neelix figuring something out.
That they cut, or just him trying to murder everyone by giving
Right.
them
It's like
boiling
my
cooking
plan
oil.
is working. Yeah. I it was weird to me, and I couldn't quite understand where they were going with it. That's all.
Yeah. So in this moment, my note is, oh my God, are we going to run through everyone's dream? We're going to run through everyone's dream.
Of course we are.
Yeah.
And man, do they get to the bottom of it by the time everybody gets on the bridge? I wish that they had gone a little bit quicker with it. I didn't mind the pacing of it at the beginning. I was like, okay, at least it's not mindless chatter, right?
Right.
Just
it is
idle chatter.
Yeah, but it was the same thing over and over. And again, like you said, we were waiting for the characters to catch up to what we already knew. And
Right.
it's like, it wasn't filler, you're right, because it was moving everything forward. But again, it was just them catching up to us. And it was super obnoxious.
Right.
Based on Kim's comment, going back to our previous conversation, he says it involved an alien. And my note says it did not involve an alien. The alien was there watching. But since it wasn't clear and he says it involved an alien, we know what was going on.
Yeah, he joins in.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yep.
The alien's like, jackpot.
Right? This is the whole reason that he's been doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. I did have it kind of reminded me of like when they're all sitting around the table describing their dreams and they're trying to make what do they call that? A drawing of the alien.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out what he looks like. And they're like, bam, that's it. I kind of got a major Schisms vibe.
Yep.
Yeah. Like it felt very, I would love to know if it was inspired by that episode.
Right.
Because it kind of diverges from that concept pretty quickly. But up until that moment, it's kind of the same thing, right?
It's pretty similar. Yeah. Yeah. But that's also very early on. So I wonder if they wanted to get that out of the way so they could move forward with the trajectory that is different. Because you're right. Up until this point, it was very similar.
Right.
I wish they had the same caliber of episode for this one as Schisms, I believe, is. But,
I mean, for a Voyager episode, I thought that this was in the upper echelon of quality.
I mean, just going back to my first comment, it was just there was too much of the same thing. We needed a B plot of about 10, 15 minutes ish to tighten up what was happening with the dream plot.
Right. Or make more A plot.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a plug-in that they have for the Voyager writers.
Yeah. It's just the same note.
Right.
They just have a stamp for it.
So there's a bit of a music question for you.
Okay.
Like the score.
Okay.
So when they all discover they're having the same dream or having dreams that involve the same person, there's a moment of revelation, and you'd think that they would want to accentuate that moment with score, and they don't, because they say like we're all having the same dream. It seems like, and there's like nothing. The Ed is what the air
The Ed
is,
isn't it.
Yeah, the air is clear. There is no drama in the music. There's no music, and I thought, oh, how interesting. And then when they especially when they rush off to Ensign's quarters, there's like this moment of like, okay, kind of like an Enterprise when something happens and then that low hum of urgency happens. Mm-hmm. That happens in this. And they're like, something's wrong with Ensign. We got to go get him. Tuvok, you're with me. Or Chakotay, whatever, you're with me. And so they go, and there's still not a button on that musically. And normally that would be a big red flag. Start the music. We've started the plot. There's urgency. We need to go. I wonder if you can guess why there is no music. Because I know why.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I would, my guess would be because it's copyrighted and they had to remove it.
No, it's not something technical like that.
Okay.
There's a dramatic reason, and keep in mind what happens just after that in the turbo lift with Tuvok.
Okay.
And Janeway.
Nope.
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
So here's why. Here's why they do not ramp up the urgency.
Now, sorry,
because-
I know that you're saying this with confidence. Like, do you know that this is why they did it in the episode, or are you just saying this is why this sort of thing happens?
So this is why this sort of thing happened in this moment. And I'm like 90%, 92.5% sure.
Okay.
This is why.
Okay.
And maybe it had music before and they took it out because it was too dumb. Because here's why. Because they wanted to have a joke where Janeway and Tuvok have a light moment where he talks about his naked dream.
Uh-huh.
And they
Yeah.
couldn't blow through that with urgent music, and they couldn't pivot because that would make it sound like a cartoon.
Right.
So they elected to not have any music so they could make room for their Tuvok joke.
Ugh.
It was so dumb. It wasn't even like a good moment.
Right.
Because it doesn't make sense, as you had said, that Vulcans would have like a naked dream. It seems something that they wouldn't care about, especially as superior as they feel.
Right.
That
Vulcans
Vulcans feel.
And also, so there is very few, but there is a behind the scenes note about Tuvok's dream. And he says, or Tim Russ says, that as a Vulcan, he wouldn't find it embarrassing, but he would feel for the humans that, he understands social protocol. And so he would feel obligated to go get dressed because he's not just social protocol, but Starfleet protocol. He should not be on the bridge naked. And second off, he doesn't want to keep all of them embarrassed by standing around naked. So,
Right, but then why do they laugh at him?
well, just because it's an uncomfortable situation, and you laugh when things go horribly wrong. All you can do is laugh.
Right. I guess so. Man, a lot of Easter eggs for Strange New Worlds in this one.
But that doesn't add up to what's happening in the elevator, because if he wasn't embarrassed, then he would have no problem telling her, I dreamt that I was naked on the bridge.
I agree. It seems like he's embarrassed for them. It's like, I'm sorry, you can't have this.
That's not embarrassed. That's
He's embarrassed for them.
he's sympathetic,
He's embarrassed that they're embarrassed.
It is tragic for you that you can't get on this.
Get up on this.
Right. Be all up on this business.
I disagree with Tim Russ. I think that is a retcon. They would not be laughing at him. By the way, he gets bullied twice in this episode. Once in his dreams and once in real life. He gets bullied in his dream when they're all laughing at his junk.
Right.
It would have been way better if they were all kind of just like mesmerized. Like, I had no idea, Tuvok. And let it sit there.
Do they all split at the end?
They seem to be kissing each other. Is that normal?
I'm sorry. Are those braided?
I do that when I'm nervous.
Like, what I'm picturing is not him actually braiding, but it's like he can control it.
It's prehensile?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, good stuff. But so he does get bullied later. And I can't believe that it's kind of in a script like this, because they laugh at him for being Vulcan when they're all kind of sitting around sharing their dreams, like in the middle of when they kind of split the episode down the middle in terms of what's happening and in terms of the urgency.
Right.
And they're like laughing at him, not because of something he said or like a personality trait, but because he's Vulcan.
Yeah.
They were laughing at him.
Yeah. They're filling in what his dream was without him having said anything. And yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
you can't be bullied one time.
right, unless you're Tuvok.
Well, even then, he had to be bullied twice.
Well, for him, he's already been bullied in his sleep too.
He's just bullied all over the place.
He's just bullied everywhere.
Poor Tuvok. I mean, thankfully, he's emotionless. So,
But he doesn't seem to like enjoy it, right? Or rather, it doesn't. It's not like water off a duck's ass, right?
I mean, it has to be because he's Vulcan.
It would have to be, but we know better. We know that.
Yeah, we know that he goes home and cries in his bed naked.
Well, he murders things in the holodeck for sure. I don't think it's a sad thing. I think it's I can't kill them because we need them to get home, and that's kind of illegal.
Do you think he has a program? If he does have this program, do you think he has a program where they continually come back to life and he can kill them, or he is just methodically killing everybody on the crew?
Oh, you mean so he walks in and it kind of continues from the last person he killed?
Yeah.
That kind of thing? I don't know. That's a good point. I feel like he'd have to really extend that out, right? It would have to be a pretty elaborate program if he's not just killing them over and over again. I would think that in order to vent his frustration, he would need to be killing Janeway 7 or 8 times a day.
Yeah. No,
Just to stay at normal.
right.
You know?
As I was saying it out loud, it makes more sense because if you're mad at the person and you kill them and then they piss you off again, you can't be like, well, you're already dead, so it doesn't matter to me.
Can't kill him again. Right. You can't beat a dead Janeway.
I mean, or maybe you can, since it never decomposes. Maybe you can just sit there and beat her over and over. Oh, it's getting so dark. Never mind.
Like she doesn't die. That's one thing. No, that's one thing. That's how I would do it. He would program this version of Janeway. Just he could do whatever he want. Like he could dismember her or whatever, and she just wouldn't die. So he could always just get there. You know what I mean? It's like a violent pon farr.
Right. I also feel like that's taking, like, I could just see him getting the holodeck and real life confused and just maiming
true.
Janeway.
Oh man. What a great plot for a great episode. It couldn't be a main case. It would have to be sort of the Barclay thing where he's having the...
It would have to be... Oh, I just saw his name and I cannot remember. The Betazoid. You know, the one who...
Deanna Troi?
No, the Betazoid who was a killer. Do you remember?
No.
He does the voice of Chucky. I wish I could remember his name.
Oh yeah, I love that guy.
Yeah.
That guy is super cool. He's
Yeah.
on Voyager too.
Yeah, as a Betazoid who kills. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's the one who should have this program.
That's right.
And he uses the holodeck to satisfy that craving. And one day he just gets the two confused and he just casually, like the person upsets him and he just casually dismembers them.
Man, that would be dark.
Yeah.
Once again, that sounds like a job for lower decks. Because you can do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Very true.
So this, as I said before, this episode is kind of split down the middle in terms of plot. So they realize very quickly that there's this dream. Chakotay goes in. They have this plan where he's going to confront the alien. And there's this, and he does do it. He sees the moon. He realizes that he's dreaming. And interestingly, like spent a lot of money on this morph from a deer that Chakotay is hunting in his dream into the alien.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that was really expensive for something that really didn't need to happen. Right?
Yeah, just show a flash of light, kind of different from Q, and because it's a dream, it's fine, and then just make it the person. Yeah, you did not need that morphing, right?
Right. And there's this info dump that was Scooby-Doo level when the confrontation happens, and they kind of lay it out. And it just felt very uncreative. It just felt very, we need to establish this fake thing that's happening so we can get on with the next plot.
Right.
And it just felt I should have written down what they said, but it was just very cookie cutter. You're here to destroy us. We're not here to destroy you. We're just passing through. We didn't mean to.
Yeah.
It's just that kind of just like, you could have been more creative with it. There could have been something else that was happening.
Yeah. Right. So to move a little bit forward, because I have nothing else to say about that, he wakes up, he tells everybody what's going on. They go to the bridge, and the guy introduces himself, or he greets all of them by name, and it cuts to a commercial at that point, and then they all beam onto. It comes back, and they all beam onto the bridge and hold them all at gunpoint, and then it cuts to them walking into the brig, and it was just so weird that they put the commercial break at the greeting instead of holding everyone at gunpoint. Like, we already knew that he knew all of them. So it was weird to be like, oh my gosh, there he is in real life. Because they just established that he was going to be in real life. So it was like the commercial point should have been them all just beaming on and holding them at gunpoint and then coming back to them walking into the brig. It was just so weird that it was literally 5 seconds later and they couldn't put the commercial break there.
Well, they have to design these things when they're filming them. They can't just do it in editing because they have those very awkward kind of pushes in while the music swells and they can cut to black. Like, they have to film it that way.
Right.
Very rarely can you just manufacture that in editing. So they may have realized that and couldn't do anything about it because there was no break. There was no moment where they're just standing there waiting for the music to swell.
Right,
They don't continue on. Like, cause it's a very unnatural thing that they do. I mean, TNG does it all the time.
Yeah.
Almost every act out, they have that.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, so I did write in my notes, and I wrote in my notes that it would have been cool if Chakotay, this is in the middle of the episode, if Chakotay woke up and the entire crew is asleep and the ship is adrift, right?
Yeah.
He was given these orders to go to this place to get outside of the field, and he wakes up and it's months have gone by, which is kind of what happens later on. I was like, oh, they did what I wanted.
Right.
But it's not, though. Like, I wanted it to be an actual Chakotay show,
right,
where everyone else is incapacitated. He wakes up and even the doctor is off. He has to find a way to turn him back on, and he's got a beard and everything. And I just felt like that would have been way more kind of apocalyptic type of show where the engines don't work. He has no way of waking anybody up. And it's more of a, how do I ingenuitize my way out of this?
Right.
Ingenuit. There it is. How do I ingenuit my way out of this process? And it kind of doesn't do that. It turns into sort of a regular Voyager episode.
Yeah.
But they kind of went halfway. So good for them.
Well, and it was also nice, kind of from that point on, that it did go back and forth as to whether or not it was a dream or it was real.
Right.
It was
I almost hate that stuff. This is why I don't like dreams and stuff.
Right.
Because you're kind of like, oh, is it a dream or not? You're just kind of waiting for that to drop, and you can't really engage with anything because you don't know if it's real, and so you're like, well, I don't really, like, what am I supposed to do emotionally with this?
Right, you don't know if you're supposed to care, yeah.
It's like, if you're just going to keep doing the thing where they keep waking up over and over again, that's what I was expecting. I was expecting there to be like deep Inception levels of stuff like that.
Right.
I kind of check out, I guess, when that happens. Do you do that? Like, do you care? Did you watch this? I guess is the question.
I've seen Star Trek, yeah.
I've heard of it.
No, I did watch it. And for me, I completely understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree. But for me, my focus is trying to see if there are any clues to indicate whether or not it still is a dream before the characters realize it.
Oh, I see. So, you mean, did they actually produce this well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of along those lines, it would have been, for me, I think, kind of going back to original Star Trek, if they had some cadet, some red shirt that actually stayed in with the warp core breach because they thought it was a dream and they died, and then it shows the doctor taking care of that person because they died. So what happens in the dream, if you die in the dream, you die in real life.
Yeah, the stakes kind of go away once
Yeah.
we realize it is a dream.
Yep.
Yeah. It would have been funny if Chakotay has the idea that maybe this is all fake and they can remain in the engine room because nothing's going to happen.
Right.
And Janeway says, I think it's a bad idea. I think, what if it's not real? And Tuvok says, no, you should remain in there.
Right.
I think you'll be fine.
If anyone should do it, Captain, it should be you.
It's you. Yeah. You're the leader of this whole group. Right. You need to set an example.
And she's doing it, but she kind of doesn't want to. Yeah. She kind of believes him, but she's not 100% positive.
It's Tuvok getting back at everybody for being bullied.
Right. Exactly.
He feels like, oh, this is great. Like, this is what I normally dream about, is just sending crew members to their death.
She's like, oh, this is such an amazing opportunity. How can I say no? Can I say no? I want to say no. It's no.
And then they have kind of an interesting thing where
they wrap it up.
They wrap it up. They don't really explain how this race can just remain asleep.
No.
Because they were making themselves sleep. It's not like they were naturally always asleep.
Yeah.
Like
and
a slot.
There wasn't any creativity on Chakotay's part of fixing the situation. He's basically holding them at gunpoint, saying, fix it!
That's true. And then he falls asleep on the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did think it was interesting from the standpoint of, that was clever of Chakotay to basically say, blow us all up if you don't hear from me in 5 minutes.
Right. Well, yeah,
And
it was kind of a plan B.
it was kind of cool. I was like, oh, that actually was clever.
Right.
Because he fell asleep. He knew he was going to fall asleep, and he fixed that. They didn't really handle this, and I can understand why, because they only have 45 minutes. The idea of sleep time and the sense of you could be dreaming for what feels like days or months, but it's actually 5 minutes in your mind, or
Right.
real time.
Right.
And they
Well,
don't
yeah.
handle the sense of time. And so the idea that he would give himself such a small amount of time,
Right.
it seems unlikely.
Well,
right? It could
especially
have been,
since he woke up, and not much time had passed in his dream, and the doctor was like, "You've been asleep for 39 hours."
right. It would have been so much better. Like give this show a little bit of edge, a little bit of grit to it.
Yeah.
Say like, oh, we've been asleep for 6 months. Like give everybody a beer. Do something where there's some consequences to this shit.
Right. Right.
It's been so much better.
Yeah.
Makes you think about it. It's like, oh man, imagine waking up and you're 6 months older.
And it's just frustrating because it still doesn't seem like Paramount has quite learned its lesson. But even back then, DS9 had some sequential episodes where you had to have seen the previous one, and it said like previously on, not just one right after the other, but they were like, this is kind of like with X-Files. They were like, this is a world building episode from things that have happened in the past. So you need to remember those things. So here's what's happened previously on Star Trek Deep Space Nine in previous seasons, previous episodes from this season, not the last episode,
Right.
And
Yeah,
and then with Enterprise, they did kind of the same thing. They had kind of like what we were just talking about with our previous Enterprise episode. They got damaged from the Romulans, and then the next episode they're floating adrift in space because they're damaged. Those two things, it's better if you saw the last episode, but you didn't have to see the last episode to understand the current story. And so Voyager, they were like, no, we can't do anything that's serial, which is why Brian Fuller left the show. Like they were like, no, every episode needs to be self-contained. Just it wraps up at the end, and the next episode it's like it never happened. And you're right, like that completely lowers the stakes, and it just doesn't give it any teeth.
I agree. By the way, speaking of that Brian Fuller left the show, I always wonder when you hear about that kind of stuff. I mean, what were you expecting to happen?
Right.
Was it a bluff that he couldn't back down from? Or did he actually leave thinking they would think that Paramount would say, well, he left, I guess we have to cancel the show.
Right.
Right? It's like, what was your plan? You're giving up like a great job because you don't agree with them creatively?
And I don't, like, Brian Fuller, to my knowledge, hasn't stayed with anything he started due to creative differences.
How does he keep getting work?
Right.
He sounds like kind of a nightmare.
Right. Yeah, like he's either refusing to budge on his vision, or he has these great ideas. I mean, it's probably a combination of the two. He has these great ideas, and he has connections to keep getting the opportunity to get greenlit, but he's so committed to the idea as he wants it that the moment they start making any changes, he's like, that's it, I'm out.
I don't know. It feels short-sighted to do that.
Right.
Can you not be creative in the confines of whatever the higher-ups are creating for you?
Yeah.
I feel like you can always make something work.
Oh,
Granted, yeah. I don't know. It feels very short-sighted to just leave a show or leave something because it feels very tantrumy to me.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
So there's one little kind of nitpick that I don't understand. So at the end, Chakotay and the doctor are on the bridge trying to set everything up to change course, et cetera, to go towards this planet that may be housing these sleeping aliens.
Yeah.
And there's a point where Chakotay is in with everybody else, and then he realizes there's a moon, and he says, oh, I need to snap out of this. So he snaps out of it, and I got the impression the doctor woke him up with like a hypo spray.
Yeah. A stimulant.
Yeah. Why can he do that to Chakotay and nobody else?
So my guess would be, I mean, again, this is me doing the heavy lifting for them, but my guess would be he was already awake. So it was easier because Chakotay was the only one who realized that he was dreaming. So the doctor was able to bring him back out fairly quickly. But also they'd had a conversation about what was happening. So the doctor had a little bit more information about how to wake up Chakotay.
But why can't he just once you're in it, you're in it. I didn't get the impression that if you're in it for longer, that it is harder to wake you up. So why would it felt like they wanted that moment where he had fallen back asleep and needed to get him out of it to make the plot work.
Yeah.
And so they kind of wrote themselves into a corner and needed to get out of it. So they're just like, well, let's just say he gets a hypo spray and be done with it.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because those conversations where you do have to make one of the characters dumber, they don't want to do unless they do. Because I'm trying to, like, there are times where they're like, wait a minute, you built a Dyson sphere? What is that? Like Chakotay should have been like, we'll do that to everybody else. And the doctor would be like, I've tried, and whatever. Like, just give us those 2 lines of dialogue to explain why he's not doing that to everybody.
Yeah, it's easily handled. They just don't handle it.
Right.
I always wonder if the actors, if they encounter incongruities like that on set, if they say anything about it, or do they just read the lines? They must say something if it's totally outlandish.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit harder because you do film the scenes out of order, and you have to read the script. And if you are not a person who can read something and picture it, then you're probably also not reading the script entirely. You're probably just going, okay, my line, I have to be there these days, and maybe at some point you can sit down and actually read the script, but that's not really what your focus is.
I guess that's true. They probably don't want to rock the boat either. It's like, you do the acting, we'll worry about the writing.
Right.
Chakotay.
Exactly. Robert. Oh, there's too many.
There's like 3 of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you think? Is this a proper, genuine Star Trek episode? Does it check all the boxes?
Right. I'm trying to think whether or not there's a dilemma in the episode.
I don't think there is.
Yeah, I don't think there is either. I wanted it to be a proper episode, just again for all the people who hate our podcast without listening to it. Because I wanted
it's good for marketing, right?
Totally. Oh, it's just amazing. Well, because there are so many people now who are complaining about New Trek. It's not real Star Trek. Like there's a Facebook group that it's devoted to only the original series. Like that's all they care about. Everything else is everything else is just fake.
Wow.
Yeah, everything
Even
else.
Next Gen, they don't have any.
Yeah, nope.
Next Gen love.
No Next Gen.
Wow.
No, and no Kelvin timeline. Like that. That's not even the original series either. So it's literally William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy. I mean, they probably accept the movies too. But anyway.
Wow.
So there's so many people
intense.
that are complaining about New Trek that for us to have this, kind of, I like our criteria, but we also do it in a very tongue-in-cheek manner. That for us to have this podcast about whether or not the episode is proper Star Trek, man, every time I put up a new episode, not every time, but I would say 2 out of 3 times I put up a new episode, I'm like, but is it proper Star Trek? I get at least 2 people that are like, gatekeeper, or what are you talking about? Is it proper Star Trek? Yes, it's got Star Trek in the name.
And you're not even trolling them.
No.
Right?
No.
It's like, this is what our show's about.
Right.
It's not a troll. It's like, also, it's a television show. We're having a little bit of fun. We're trying to have a little bit of fun with the show. It's not like we're actually saying that it's it's not Star Trek, even though it has a Star Trek emblem on it. It's having a little bit of fun. You can't have a little bit of fun with it,
Right.
sir?
Well, and again, like going way back to our first episode, and I think I actually just mentioned it recently too, but all of those like top 10 best or top 10 worst, those are subjective. Like you can't say this is classic Star Trek because like what makes it classic Star Trek? Because you loved it so much? Like if somebody else hated it, then it's not classic Star Trek.
Well, and nobody does any work to try and identify why so many people like it.
Right.
And at least we're doing that work.
Right.
For everybody. You're welcome, people.
I know. So get off our asses. Seriously.
But it also does help when people hate us, I think.
I think it does too.
It's nice to be hated.
Well,
nice to be hated.
It definitely gets more views on the posts, which all of the episodes that have controversial comments in the post have more views. So there is definitely something to that. So I don't think that it is proper Star Trek, which is a little disappointing. I was hoping it would be. But I do, before we fully wrap up, I really disliked how the episode ended. I mean, I like the denouement where everybody was afraid to go to sleep. That totally makes sense. But I didn't like that there was no resolution to everybody having to be up. And I know that there's not going to be. And I didn't like that the resolution, like I said, was just holding them at gunpoint. And then it cuts and they're like, well, we got off the planet and like we're on our way.
Yeah, how did they wake everybody up on the planet?
Right.
So these people are like attacking people in their sleep.
Right.
I'm assuming that Voyager is not the first ship that this has happened to.
Yeah.
I guess it would have been a lot more satisfying had they concocted some kind of mythology for these people. Like if Chakotay had gotten to the planet and there was like different aliens or something, or there was like an imprisoned element to it,
right,
or they needed people for something to eat or something. Just why are they doing this?
Yes. So it should have been that they were the oppressed and they were working for some other race to capture these ships so they could be just dismantled for parts. And either they can only communicate when they're asleep, or they do have that is their job. Their job is to sleep so they can attack these ships and keep those people asleep as well. And Voyager finds these sleeping aliens and saves them from the oppressor.
Right. I mean, I would have liked to have been a very, I would have liked to have, what? I would have liked there to have been some sort of dark reason why they are attacking. Like you said, maybe they need heart parts, and the reason they put them to sleep is they can easily beam onto the ship,
right,
and analyze the whatever alien to see if their hearts work or their buttholes work.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just something more to the episode to tighten up the dream part, because then we would have a third act that would require them to figure out how to wake up the aliens, or how to wake up the aliens, and in so doing, wake up themselves. This
kind of leads into our Voyager movie, by the way.
Right?
Maybe this is some sort of offshoot. What this is why they're asleep. They've actually
This is where Janeway gets the technology.
Yeah, it's like a Matrix style collective.
Yep.
Where they are dreaming. But they're just a super long dream.
Yeah.
It's coming together, Jonathan.
Right?
It's coming together.
And what's nice about it is you can really do this at any time. I mean, because you can show them at whatever age, and then you can just show that they've been aging in real time, and they haven't made it back to Earth.
Yeah, they're all 30 years older.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity. Because they're not going to make a Voyager show.
No.
So let's do it. Let's do it, Paramount.
And first, just to speak to Data's immortality and Robert Picardo's, or Data and Robert Picardo and the Doctor's immortality, he could say, that he made his appearance age along with the rest of them. So if they ever woke up, when they made it home, they would not be freaked out by his younger appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to explain away.
Right. When you have Technobabble, you can explain away anything.
Anything.
But in a way that Next Generation did it, where it connects to something in the current world. And it's not just Technobabble through the whole thing, and you're like, oh, okay, you're going to circumvent the flaggers. Got it.
But there has to be a dark reason. That's why I liked it, Janeway.
Yeah.
That she does this to everybody. It gives her an arc.
Well, right. It just makes her a sympathetic villain, as opposed to a mustache-twirling Brent Spiner from Picard.
Right. Man, this episode might have the most modern Trek Easter eggs of any of our episodes.
Well, if they want to have the answers to what we're talking about, they should listen to our other episodes.
Yeah, they should. They should go back and listen to them, because by this point they've already aired.
Yeah, true story.
Yeah. So you have it all at your fingertips, people.
Just keep listening. Don't let the podcast end when this ends. Well,
right.
I mean, you can do that with Strange New Worlds. With Picard, that's going to be a little interesting to listen to it backwards.
Right. Okay, so it is not a proper
It is not a proper episode.
I think only, though, because of the ethical dilemma. I think both of the other ones are kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and
good for them.
There wasn't any debate about whether or not to wake them up. There wasn't any... I mean, there was a debate about whether or not it was a dream or real life, but that's not dilemma. That's not
Not a dilemma.
Well, it's not an ethical or moral dilemma. Like, what am I feeling today? Am I feeling coffee or orange juice? Oh, there's the moral dilemma.
Well, I feel like in every Voyager episode, there is an implicit dilemma of whether or not whether or not Tuvok should execute Neelix.
Yeah, yes. Although, to be fair, it was a group of people in this episode. It was Neelix et al. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, yeah. Good episode. Again, as is Voyager's MO. Could have been better, but not a proper Star Trek. Worth watching, but
Yeah, I think it's up there in terms of Voyager episodes. It was entertaining.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, all right. What are we watching next?
Star Trek: The Next Generation, Season 2, Episode 12, The Royale. Huh? Yeah.
Is it the
He
casino
gasps
one?
in delight.
I think it's the casino one.
Well, let's find out. I'm gonna read the blurb right now.
Okay.
Try and tamper down your enthusiasm. We're supposed to not have seen these before.
That's not true.
What? That's true. I just made that.
We just. I don't remember like 2/3 of them, but there are some that are deeply embedded. They live in my brain rent free.
The blurb is investigating the discovery of a piece of metal bearing a United States Air Force insignia.
Yep.
The away team, capitalized, finds itself trapped in the world of the Hotel Royale, a novel come to life.
Nice.
Yeah. I will say something about this. I love these type, because I do remember this one.
Yeah.
And I remember the reasoning behind it.
Uh-huh.
I love these types of episodes where what is happening to the characters around them seems very supernatural and could easily exist in a Stephen King novel.
Yes.
Where just monsters start coming and magical things start happening. But in fact, no, the answer to why this is happening does have a technical scientific reason.
Yes.
I love it when these types of episodes happen.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't wait. Can't wait to watch it. Unless it's a piece of shit and I forgot all about how much of a piece of shit it is.
Right? I mean, it is very much an original series episode where everybody is in Starfleet uniforms in a modern setting.
A modern time.
Yeah. Or a Western town or something.
Well, the casino is open this week. You want to use that? All right. We'll have a script to you by Monday.
Right. Yeah. Give me my lunch break. I'll have a script for you.
Right.
So, all right. Well, yeah, let's go watch it. I've been Jonathan.
And I've been Paul.
And this has been The Measure of an Episode.
But you already knew that. See, I can't do it where it's like not now. What does he sound like? Shut up, Wesley. Right.
Yeah, I mean, engage.
Shut up,
just
Wesley.
do his stereotypes and then just use that voice.
Does Picard have an angry sound to him? Not really.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is his Avery Brooks impression on Chain of Command when he's like, "There are 4 lights."
God, that's so disturbing.
It is.
That I know intentionally avoided watching those episodes when I was watching them because I knew that it was like, oh God, I want to watch this is like torture.
It is. It really is. It's very uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Is the podcast still going? I still have to do the thing. Trying to think. Shut up, Wesley. 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 You already knew that. That sounds more like Deanna.
Oh, Deanna. He's hiding something.
Wesley, you already knew that. Okay, I did it.